So we have a lot to get into today. I'm just going to say right now, this is going to be a bit of a longer video. So I'm going to timestamp everything. If you want to skip parts that you've already heard or that you don't think are relevant or whatever, feel free to do so. I'm going to make that easy. My favorite thing these days for longer videos has been to hit the settings button and click the playback speed and hit about a 1.5. so that I can get through videos, but also get all of the information, but also fit it into a tight schedule when I don't have time to sit around for 30 minutes. So all of those things might help you get through this situation. As you can tell, per the thumbnail and the title, I am going to be talking about Candace Owens and how she has handled the passing of Charlie Kirk, because in my opinion, this woman is completely unhinged. Like, I think that she has gone beyond being anti-Semitic. Very clearly has a seething hatred for these people. And to me, that is demonstrated by the fact that every single bad thing that happens, she looks at it and she says, it's Israel's fault. And now let me find the proof and twist it in a way to back up what I think and how I feel, to back up my anger and my outrage. Before I get too much further, I want to say this video really isn't even about being pro-Israel or anti-Israel. Like, you can have whatever thoughts and feelings you have about Israel as a nation, whether you think they have too much involvement in our country, whether you think that we support them too much, whether you think that they have too much influence over Trump. You can have whatever feelings you want about that. I don't think that criticizing Israel makes you anti-Semitic. And I hope that just because I'm calling Candace out for her position doesn't mean that you think I think Israel is faultless, that they are a perfect nation, that I agree with everything that they do. I think we need to get away from those extremes and just call things for what they are. And I feel like that's what Charlie Kirk was getting into. It wasn't that his support for Israel was failing. It's that he was calling into question some of the people behind the scenes, some of the backlash that he was receiving for the questions that he had, and all of those things, which were perfectly legit. I know that was a really long intro, but I wanted to get that out of the way before we proceed. Please leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I am welcome to all of it. Please be sure to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel. But without further ado, let's get into this situation. And I'm going to go through how everything has unfolded across my timeline in the order that I've seen it, the things that Candace has said, and the people that have come out and utterly debunked what she has said. Now, this all kind of started when Candace Owens went on her podcast and started talking about a meeting that happened in the Hamptons in August. Now, I am not sure if this meeting happened in 2024 or 2025, but somehow she is drawing links between the discussions that were had at that meeting, that a source tells her how this all went down, and what led to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, she is claiming that this meeting in the Hamptons included Bill Ackman, Charlie Kirk, and Babylon Bee CEO Seth Dillon. And she claims that Ackman staged this high-pressure intervention to influence Charlie Kirk's what seemed to be an evolving stance on Israel. And she alleges that threats were made and Kirk was offered a ton of money to visit Israel to perhaps sway him to be more openly pro-Israel and maybe stop asking the questions that he was asking. She also stated that Bibi Netanyahu contacted Charlie Kirk personally and again offered him money to sway him and pay him to say certain pro-Israel things. So this is what it sounded like when she was describing what her source told her what happened at that meeting.
In the Hamptons, and he had more than one event, but he had essentially what was staged, an intervention was staged by Bill Ackman, because Charlie's rational thoughts about Israel were a no-no. This is not the route that you should be going on. And Charlie was surrounded by his friends, his quote-unquote friends. Bill Ackman was very upset, and threats were made. That is what I am told, and I will tell you that I am very happy for Bill Ackman to dispute this narrative. In fact, he was asked to dispute this narrative. Max Blumenthal went out to him today, and Bill Ackman came back and said, I have receipts I can show you, and he did not provide the receipts. This is not how it went down. I know it went down this way. I'm waiting for one of them to go on record and to say that it didn't go down this way. It was at this time that Bibi Netanyahu was called and Charlie was invited to Israel. This was an under duress situation, I would say, because I've been in these situations before. When I started asking very sensible questions about Israel. As someone who had dedicated her political life to supporting Israel, many times alongside Charlie Kirk, I was met with the very same pressure. And just like Charlie was being invited to Israel, I was invited somewhere else. And when this arrived to me, it felt like a threat. I got to tell you, it felt like a threat. Like, not like, hey, come here and we can educate you because you're my friend. More like, this is your last chance. That's how it felt to me. I can't speak to how it felt to Charlie. And I know that Charlie was offered a ton of money in this moment. A ton of money. Maybe would fund it, spend tons of money. And Turning Point, I guess, if it needed to go to a higher level, would have gone to an even higher level than it already was at. And I know for a fact that Charlie denied that funding, that Charlie denied, and what BB did include there, he declined to go to Israel for, I would describe this as like, re-education camp. We've seen it. You made an uh-oh, but we can help you. We just need you to come out to Auschwitz and take a picture. We just need you to come to the Holocaust Museum and take a photo. We just need you to go to Israel and we can make this better. Charlie said no to BB. Okay. Bill Ackman, if you would like to dispute that, I would love to hear what you say happened, because our sources and what we have, it's solid. Okay. There were conversations that took place, messages that were sent at that time, and they are solid. So I decided, another person that was there, and I am not surprised this person was there. If you've been listening to my show, Seth Dillon, I was going to go to Seth Dillon, and I decided to message him last night about this Hamptons meeting. And Seth Dillon, who is normally very quick with a response, has not yet been able to respond. I'll show you this text message chain. And I want to be clear, I am not someone who normally publicizes text messages, but my friend was shot in the neck, and I'm just not really in the state right now to be polite when it comes to the answers that I am demanding, okay? This is me out to Seth Dillon last night. I sent him Bill Ackman's tweets because, he tweeted, I feel incredibly privileged to have spent a day and shared a meal with Charlie Kirk this summer. He was a giant of a man. I said, any comment on this one, Seth? He didn't answer last night. This morning I said, need a comment ASAP, please. He didn't answer. Then I followed that up and I said, trying again here, you were present when Ackman lost his mind on Charlie and when BB invited him to Israel and Charlie refused. Text messages immediately following this meeting are circulating. I find Ackman's statement, as though the meeting was somehow cordial, to be incredibly disturbing. Are you at all disturbed by that tweet? Do you feel, as I do, that this tweet significantly betrays the defined purpose and mood of his, and I presume your, final meeting with Charlie Kirk, ? He was unable to speak to me, but he did place some frantic calls to Turning Point USA. Yeah. You see, I went out to Seth, but I also went out to two other people who were at this meeting, and nobody is willing to go on record. They're all messaging each other, trying to figure out a coordinated response to say that, no, this was all quite cordial, but no one wants to go on record and describe it as cordial because they know someone's leaking, because someone's got a guilty conscience about what happened at the Hamptons.
So far, Candace has said that she feels that this must have been what happened, because when she herself was reached out to about her stance on Israel, that she felt threatened. That was how she interpreted it. So that must be what was going on with Charlie, because of her personal feelings about how people have questioned her stances. So therefore, that must be exactly what Charlie Kirk was experiencing. So there's a lot of projection going on. Her proof is also that Seth Dillon did not respond to her, somebody that she has spent a long time attacking and throwing under the bus. But because he chose not to respond to her, that's the proof that this is true. Okay, unhinged. In my opinion, unhinged. But she did specifically request that Bill Ackman go on record and say what it was that they did discuss. And Bill Ackman did that. So yes, this is a long post. I'm going to read all of it. Again, it's a timestamp, so if you want to skip ahead, go right ahead. But it says, this afternoon, Candace Owens slandered me by accusing me of staging an intervention with Charlie Kirk in which threats were made with respect to his supposed evolving stance on Israel at an event I hosted in the Hamptons. Candace also intimated that I blackmailed Charlie Kirk. On the show, Candace said that she would be very happy for me to dispute this narrative. While it pains me to drive more traffic to her program, I'm responding here to clear my name. It saddens me that we live in a society where social media influencers seek to monetize the tragic death of Charlie Kirk. For the record, at no time have I ever threatened Charlie Kirk, Turning Point, or anyone associated with him. I have never blackmailed anyone, let alone Charlie Kirk. I have never offered Charlie or Turning Point any money in an attempt to influence Charlie's opinion on anything. In fact, my interactions with Charlie Kirk have been extremely cordial, albeit limited, regretfully so, as I was very impressed by him and his work, and I will sadly never see him again. In an effort to clear the record, I share the following. I have followed Charlie Kirk on X for some time and greatly admired him. While I didn't agree with Charlie on every issue, I had enormous respect for his intelligence, vast knowledge about religion, and his willingness to take on all corners in open mic sessions on campus and otherwise. Periodically, I would repost some of his posts and video clips. I connected with Charlie when he DM'd me in late May of this year and expressed interest in meeting me. In light of our respective schedules, we were unable to find a time to meet in person, so we scheduled a Zoom on June 11th. On the Zoom, he explained to me that conservatives, in particular young conservatives, were getting tired of defending Israel, and this was very concerning to him. I asked him how I could learn more, and he suggested that it might be useful to convene a group of young conservative influencers on a host of topics that could include Israel to get a better sense of how the conservative community was thinking about Israel and other relevant issues of concern to young people. On the Zoom, Charlie also said that his open mic conversations on campus were very effective in addressing issues on the minds of students, but he was only one person with limited bandwidth. He suggested that recruiting a group of junior Charlie Kirks who could host open mic sessions on college campuses would be an effective way to encourage debate on a host of issues, an approach he believed to be worthy of consideration and better enables students to get the truth. I expressed interest in hearing or in learning more, and we therefore scheduled a series of conference calls and Zooms with Charlie, Turning Point staff, and members of my team in an effort to assemble a diverse group of influencers who we could convene for a day-and-a-half session. In addition to getting a better sense of what and where young conservatives were on various issues, Charlie thought doing so might enable him to identify potential candidates who could launch their own campus tours and carry forth his approach to dialogue. We chose the afternoon of August 4th to the afternoon of the 5th for the convening, and Charlie and the members of my team worked to put together an invitation list. I offered to host the sessions in Bridgehampton and cover the costs so that I could attend some of the sessions as I was working from there at the time. Charlie sent out the invitations and about 34 or 35 or so influencers accepted. Charlie estimated that the influencers who attended collectively and had more than 100 million followers. Charlie and Turning Point put together the agenda for the meeting, and the topics were the economic future of America, the cultural landscape of dating and marriage, the convergence of East and West, Mamdani, the new threat to America. Charlie asked me to moderate the economic future discussion, which I did, and therefore hosted a Q&A session with the participants. The convergence of East and West included a discussion of immigration, value systems, the U.S. approach to foreign policy, and Israel. While I had wanted to attend the convergence panel, I had a board meeting that conflicted with this session. Those that attended this session said that the Israel discussion was similar to the other sessions, with the attendees expressing varying points of view as well as explaining the views of their followers. Some participants were critical of Israel and U.S. support for Israel, and others were supportive. The sessions were punctuated by meals. I attended one group lunch and a group dinner where I sat with Charlie and others. I found the sessions I attended interesting, and I really enjoyed meeting the influencers. It gave me considerable perspective on what is on the mind of young Americans on a wide range of issues. At the end of the event, I sat with Charlie and members of my team, and we discussed the events of the convening. Charlie believed that he had identified a number of potential Turning Point ambassadors who could launch open mic events on campus and that he would follow up with them. We agreed to keep in touch thereafter. We corresponded by text thereafter over the next few weeks on a range of topics that did not include Israel, and the next thing I knew, he was gone. In short, this was not an intervention to blackmail Charlie Kirk into adopting certain views on Israel. It was nothing of the sort. So basically, this whole event was to bring together conservatives who had large audiences to hear what issues were on their minds, what they were hearing from their followers, and to do Q&A sessions to figure out who could be essentially another Charlie Kirk, group of influencers that could be a Charlie Kirk on their campus, because Charlie Kirk was only one person and he wanted to be more effective, but he also wanted people to go out there and debate in the way that he was debating. And he also wanted to make sure that they heard what people's concerns were, even based on the subject of Israel, and how to address those concerns. That was what the whole thing was about. There was no intervention. There were no threats. But Bill Ackman is not the only one that has come out and met Candace's request to debunk the idea that all of these threats were being made and that this was really something to make Charlie Kirk aware that his views were becoming unacceptable. You know, this wasn't like a mob situation. He wasn't, approached by the Israeli mafia. This was nothing of the sort. But Andrew Kolvet, who is Charlie Kirk's executive producer, I believe, has also spoken out. And he says, I have been asked about the Bill Ackman event more than a few times now, so I asked our staff, who were traveling with Carly, to find out what's true and what's not. His team was with him 100% of the time when he wasn't in his hotel room. Here's what they told me. Bill never yelled at Charlie, never pressed him on Bibi, never gave him a list of Charlie's offenses against Israel. There was concern raised about having Tucker at SAS. We don't believe this came from Bill. And Charlie's reply was, honestly, people telling me not to have Tucker makes me want to have Tucker, and I'm going to lock him in for AmFest 2. Charlie personally told me he had a very cordial relationship with Bill, and the event was productive. Those are the facts. Not only that, Bill Ackman provided text messages that he and Charlie Kirk exchanged after this meeting. And they're like, does this sound like somebody who just came out of a threatening conversation? It says, how are you? I'm doing great. Really enjoyed our time together last week. Thank you again for doing that. Response, it was great and great to get to know you better. We should do dinner sometime with the ladies. I believe this is Charlie that says, absolutely, that would be awesome. Bill saying, let me know when you will be in NYC and we will have you over. Charlie, thank you, I will. We are there a few times this fall. So far, people are providing the receipts that Candace has asked for. And so far, again, all she has provided is her personal interpretation of her interactions with people that were questioning her stances on Israel, saying that she felt threatened, and not getting a response from Seth Dillon. She says that she has a source. She says that she is aware of the conversations that were had, but she has not provided any proof of that. Whereas we have people that were close to Charlie saying, yeah, that didn't happen, you psycho. Okay, maybe they didn't say psycho, but they should have. Now, in response to this, there are people that are coming out and saying, you need to knock this off. And these are people that have had far more interaction with Charlie Kirk than Candace Owens has. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But this was Charlie Kirk's pastor, Rob McCoy. He says, Charlie Kirk was my friend and I was his pastor. I want to simply say this regarding Candace Owens. Charlie Kirk was a friend to Candace and never publicly spoke poorly of her, though he disagreed with her. He never operated nor entertained gossip or innuendo concerning Candace. My only comment I offer regarding Candace is this. I only wish at this tragic time of mourning that she would be the friend to Charlie that he was to her. He would never have treated Candace or her family in such a way that, God forbid, this tragedy had been hers. And he quoted Proverbs, a friend loves at all times. So not only is he completely disturbed by what Candace is saying, JD Vance had to get involved in this little spat and basically say, we need to calm down. He says, to my friends on the political right, I understand the feeling that people are putting words in Charlie Kirk's mouth. At some level, I agree and share your frustration. Try to remember, a lot of people loved Charlie. It is natural for them to debate his views and his legacy. In fact, I think Charlie would welcome that. But for now, let's celebrate our friend, remember his impact, and save the debate for after his funeral. Among many things that I find so disturbing about what Candace is doing, what disturbs me the most is that she hasn't even waited for people to have the opportunity to mourn him, for his wife to go to this memorial, to go through this grieving process. She hasn't waited for anything. She immediately jumped on this narrative. She's exploiting, in my opinion, she's exploiting this man's death, someone that she supposedly calls her friend, again, to push her insane hatred, to back up and justify her insane hatred for Israel. And to me, it's about the most despicable thing that she could do, especially he's not here to defend himself. He's not here to clarify. This is a post that Laura Loomer made, and love her or hate her, sometimes I appreciate the things she says. Sometimes I think she's off the wall. But she says, I have gotten so many calls from people at TPUSA who are livid at Candace Owens. I wouldn't be surprised if she's blocked from attending the memorial on Sunday. Quote, we just can't believe what she is doing. She's dead to us. Unquote. And that is from a TPUSA staffer. What she's doing is terrible. If you are entertaining her blood libel, you are just totally insane. She should feel ashamed of herself for what she's doing. It's disgusting. Totally irredeemable behavior. Now, obviously, that is something where you can take her word for it or not. She hasn't provided any names. So whether or not that's true, obviously up in the air. But I believe that that is a position that TPUSA would take. But there's more. So Candace has decided that she somehow gets to determine who takes over for Charlie Kirk because she did spend a couple of years with Turning Point USA. The way that she's going to help determine this is basically by threatening people if they put somebody in there that she does not approve of.
Those of you who think that you are going to replace Charlie Kirk, okay? Kings are born. You don't just get to depose and tell us that we're going to follow this individual, okay? I'm one of the Masons of Turning Point USA.
Now, I personally think that this was a direct comment to something that Ben Shapiro had said. And I think we're getting a much clearer picture as to why she was fired from the Daily Wire. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt at the beginning and just say it was the differences of opinions. It was better to part ways. But I think we're getting a very clear idea as to why they booted her, because she is crazy. But this is what Ben Shapiro said, which is, again, who I think she was talking to.
Because we're Americans and we're not going to be deterred. Charlie's voice is not silent. We're going to pick up that bloodstained microphone where Charlie left it.
So I think she is basically sending a message to TPUSA that she will not allow Ben Shapiro or a Jewish person to take Charlie Kirk's spot. But in response to her saying that she is a Mason of Turning Point USA, I want to bring in commentary from an account that I follow on TikTok. His name is Older Millennial. You may have heard of him. But he had some really interesting things to say about Candace Owens and her career in general, and kind of debunking the idea that she had that much to do with the start of TPUSA and maybe trying to claim far too much credit than she should be.
Just about enough of Candace Owens.
I'm one of the Masons of Turning Point USA.
No, you're not. Girl, you might be one of the greatest examples of failing upwards I've ever seen in my life. Like, first of all, when it comes to Turning Point, you were fired because you were praising Hitler. I mean, you claimed you left because you wanted to focus on Blexit, which pretty much became nothing, like everything else you've ever tried to do in your career. Most of you probably never heard of this lady until she started working at Turning Point. But back in 2015, she started a company called Degree 180. It was a liberal marketing company. In fact, her entire company was dedicated to attacking Tea Party Republicans. That company failed less than 10 months later. Then in 2016, she started socialautopsy.com, where she endeavored to expose the bullies on the internet. What it was a doxing page. And that's why everybody opposed it, and Kickstarter pulled your funding, because you were creating a website to commit a crime. And magically in 2017, she became conservative. She started talking about racism and inequality and identity, all three things that she was in favor of like a year prior. Then she launched a new website and a YouTube channel called Red Pill Black. That also failed. Then in 2017, she started working at Turning Point. 2019, she was fired. Then she tried to start her own show on PragerU. That failed. And she tried to start her own thing at Daily Wire. That failed. And she was fired because she was working for Jewish people while being openly anti-Semitic. Duh, don't do that. Then she started the Freedom Phone, which turned out to be just a $120 Chinese phone that she sold for $500. So yeah, big surprise. Nobody bought that. And she worked for Glorify, which is an anti-woke startup bank, who also failed in November. And now she's a YouTuber who grabs at any conspiracy theory she can find and keeps the money coming in by being a dedicated anti-Semite. Yeah, I'm sorry, Candace. You weren't one of the Masons of Turning Point. You came in 5 years after they started up, and you were fired because you're an awful person. Stop. Please don't force Turning Point to be any more clear about how much they don't like you.
Yeah, a lot of those things I had already heard before about Candace's journey in life, and that I don't know if it has anything to do with why she has grabbed at so many conspiracy theories over the last couple of years. I feel like it is a giant grift, if there was ever something that met the definition of that. But guys, there's more. I told you this was going to be a long video. So to back up her idea that Charlie was shifting his views on Israel, she is also claiming that he started to participate in Catholic practices, that he was going to convert to Catholicism. And I believe that Erica Kirk is Catholic. I could be wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is what she is saying. Again, this man is not here to defend himself, which is why I find so much of this despicable. But I hope and pray that Erica Kirk does. But this is what Candace was saying about that.
Was definitely on the brink of changing some of his perspectives. And I can tell you factually, Charlie was praying the rosary. Charlie was going to mass. One of my last conversations with Charlie was me joking with him saying, just make the last step, okay? You are, I said specifically, you're too smart to be a Protestant. Just take the last step, Charlie. He says, ha. Speaking about Mary, was definitely on the brink.
Maybe he was going to mass because his wife is Catholic. But this is what Charlie Kirk himself had to say about that particular practice.
I personally would not be able to enter into a faith that believes that anybody except Jesus Christ our Lord was without sin. And that's my final comment on Mariology. Happy to debate it.
So yeah, is there anything that she has said that has not completely fallen apart yet? But then we need to address the idea that Candace is putting out there that she and Charlie Kirk were still just like super close and he was communicating all of his innermost, deepest thoughts to this woman. And that, you know, what she seems to be insinuating is that she knew more about him than anybody else, even his wife. Yet this is TPUSA board member Eric Bowling saying Charlie Kirk quietly distanced himself from Candace Owens after she went too far down the rabbit hole. He says they haven't communicated in years and doubts Owens even has a relationship with Erica Kirk.
Team, they were tight. They grew TPUSA like crazy. I was shocked to see her leave until being part of TPUSA. Her theories got just a little bit too down the rabbit holes. It was too extreme for their taste. And Charlie, to his credit, kept a cordial friendship with her for years, but it hasn't been a communication pipeline back and forth between the two for many years. That's why I don't know why we give Candace Owens's assessment any weight at all.
You're on the board of Turning Point?
Yeah.
Okay. When's the last time you saw Candace Owens?
In person?
Yeah.
2015.
No
question, proof that Candace Owens has nothing to do. She would be in a perfect world if they didn't have this, what I already know was a very quiet breakup where she got too rabbit hole for him. She would be the logical heir to the TPUSA throne, but she's not.
Now she's not even invited.
Correct. So this is so their divide is.
Wait a minute, not invited meaning
she's not even there.
Yeah, she's not one of the names.
Wait, you don't think she'll be at the funeral?
No.
That's not the funeral.
Heir to the
okay.
TPUSA throne.
She doesn't speak at the events anymore.
I agree that I think it's cheap that she is sparking this up like she knows something between something happened between Ackman and Charlie. For what reason?
Here's what reason? Say. To me,
money.
In my opinion, this whole thing has been completely insane. Thinking that she knows exactly what journey Charlie Kirk is on, what his intent of his questions were, what the direction that he was going with his religion, all of these things, when clearly she's not somebody that had a close relationship with him, that she has a very clear agenda of why she wants people to believe these certain things, backed up by this statement that she made after we have found out what ideology that Tyler Robinson was engaged in, after we found out what he wrote on the bullet casings, after the statements from the governor, from the Utah governor, after the statements from the FBI, everybody that has investigated this, pointing in the direction as to what ideology this particular person was engaged in and what his motives were. She is still, this particular clip is her trying to say this is not a trans issue. And I think this probably solidifies just how insane this is. She's telling us to deny what we see right in front of our eyes, to deny what evidence has shown, and go along with the deranged narrative that she has come up with in her brain because that anti-Israel lens, it's the only way that she's able to view anything that happens anymore. And she is bound and determined to take people on this downward spiral with her.
This is not left or right. I don't care. Do stop trying to make this a trans issue or right. That whole debate, it's low, guys. I'm telling you that is not where we need to be right now as a society. We are fighting evil people who rule over us and impact both sides. Okay, that's the wake up call. That's the wake up call we all need right now. And I hope that people are waking up to that fact as we look into what happened here.
Guys, I know that there are a lot of questions about what we are being told about how this all played out. And I am always one to encourage asking questions and to question the narratives that we are told, regardless of who the administration is, regardless of who is at the head of the FBI. I trust Cash Patel and Dan Bongino, but I wholeheartedly encourage constantly asking questions. And I'm not saying that there aren't questions surrounding this situation, but I have a hard time constantly drawing the connection between every time that we have questions, every time there's something suspicious going on, every time that we feel like we're not being given the entire story, that we need to draw a straight line to Israel being in control and Israel being the one in charge of the narrative and Israel being in charge of the information that we are fed, and it's Israel's fault. Like, to me, that is where the disconnect is. Like, we can ask questions without automatically assuming that we're having the wool pulled over our eyes because Israel's involved in some way. I think there are a lot of self-serving motivations, but everything that she has put out there, I believe, can be debunked. And not only based on what everybody is coming out and saying and clarifying what Charlie Kirk and those meetings were about, and the information that we have that's right in front of our faces about Tyler Robinson is what his motives were for taking out Charlie Kirk, because he believed that Charlie Kirk spread hate and, in his own words, said, hey, there's some hate that cannot be negotiated with. And now everything that he has said and that we have learned about him leans towards all of these leftist ideology talking points. Not to mention, we have seen this increase in political violence by the left based on those same things. If she does have proof of what she's saying, she better produce it soon, because I have heard that Erica Kirk and TPUSA are making note of the defamation against Charlie Kirk, things that are being said online, things that are being reported. I did read this as I was just trying to search for whether or not they have officially announced that lawsuits are coming. It says Kirk's family and TPUSA have announced intentions to file defamation lawsuits against media outlets and individuals for resurfacing his past controversial statements on race, gender, and politics following his death. Legal experts, including attorney Mark S. Zaid, emphasize that U.S. law prohibits defamation claims on behalf of the deceased, and such suits require harm to a living person's reputation, and no filings have occurred yet, despite polarized reactions from figures like Senator Mike Lee and Representative Nancy Mace. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I think that Candace Owens better be careful, because as we are seeing with the Macron case, people don't take kindly to you dragging their name through the mud, especially when your proof is shaky at best. Anyway, I know that this was a really long video, but I just wanted to go through everything so you guys could have as big a picture of what has been going on as possible. You can obviously draw your own conclusions. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as you guys know, we always end with a clip of Charlie Kirk. Keep it real, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Why are they so threatened by me coming up there for 3 hours? Open mic. So let me get this straight. Washington State University gets them for 4 years. I might get some of them for 3 hours, because they know that I, in 3 hours, can undo the damage of 4 years of garbage with one sentence, one question, one truth claim. And that's why they have to try so hard to not let